Okay. Ekam aksharam hrudi nirantaram bhavasati swayam likyate hridaya kuhar madhye kevalam yaham iti sakshāt atmarupena bhakti hृदि विषमनसा स्वं चिन्वता मज्जता अनुचलनरोधः आत्मनिष्ठो देहं ब्रह्म जडात्मकम् अहं बुद्धिर्न तस्यास्त्यतो नाहं तत्तदभावशक्तिसमये सिद्धात्मसद्भाव कोऽहं तत्कुतो वरभिये दृष्टात्मनिष्ठात्मना सोऽहं स्फूर्तितया अरुणाचलशिवः पूर्णो विभाति स्वयं सोऽहं स्फूर्तितया अरुणाचलशिवः पूर्णो विभाति स्वयं Namo Ramana. With Bhagavan's immense grace, we have been meditating on the verses of Atma bodham, the Tamil translation by Bhagavan of the Sanskrit work Atma bodha by Adi Shankara. We have come to the portion where the jnani has merged into the Brahman, and the Brahma Lakshana is indicated in verses 54, 55, 56 up to 64. We find it is all about the Brahman. The individual is no more. Individuality is no more. The jnani has freed from all upadhis, from all karmas, and is now one with the Brahman. Let's go back a little bit to recap what we saw last week. We had seen 3 verses, 51, 52, 53, the last stages of any kind of individual experience. How the jnani merges into the Brahman. So some akara was given there, that Anitta veliyin vichai atra nayama Tanil Pirutti Inbitrutti Tanayutru Anisamu Tanuliyal Tan Kudatin Ul Vilakena Tanule Tanulirvan Tan. We began by saying that the jnani, still the akara is there, has rejected all outside happinesses as limited, anityam, veli inbu, and he abides in the self. So always inverted, because only the inner happiness is the real happiness. And in the next verse, though he appears to be with the upadhis, upadhi utranenum, though he appears to be with the upadhis, he is like the space, untouched by all the upadhis and actions. Just like the space, though existing inside and outside all the objects and right through the objects, is not affected by any of the movements of the other 4 of the Panchabhutas. It is inside fire, the space is inside fire, it is outside fire, but fire cannot do anything about it. Water cannot touch it. And when all these end, the space is still there. So, that is how the jnani is like the space, untouched by the actions and upadhis. And how does he function? He seems to be functioning. He functions like the wind, he says. That means gently passing through so that he doesn't disturb the world. He appears like Moodan, like a fool. Obviously, it is not meant that the jnani is a fool. But when you realize an embarrassing mistake you have made, how you will do? Like that, the jnani sees how he had mistaken all these upadhis and all these worlds to be real. It is said by some of the commentators that that is what is meant by Moodanena. That means he is just feeling what a madman he has been. And Bhagavan, of course, says you will laugh at yourself the day you have self-realization for having run after the shadows. So like Moodan, like space, like wind, he functions and detached with the upadhis. Now, of course, the upadhi attachment is the highest attachment, isn't it? That we all know that the attachment to the body is called as identity. Identity means being one. Identical means being one. That's why Bhagavan attacks only this attachment. He says this is the root of all attachments. So don't worry about the other attachments. They are also ajnana, but they don't cause as much injury as the primary attachment, which is identity with the body. Upadhi utranenu, upadhi dharmattodu ottan. He doesn't identify himself with the functions of the body or the nature or the gunas of the body. Then we were brought to the Jivan Mukta Lakshana was shown in those 2 verses. How like the lamp lit inside a pot, The jnani is always enjoying the happiness of the Atman within himself, and he is not now outward turned like the jiva. We should know that Bhagavan says that Arunachala's aham is Mayaham. Mayaham means it does not see any other. It only is seeing itself. Aham, aham, aham. That is what differentiates between that Ishvara and Jiva. The Jiva's aham is outward turned. The I thought is outward turned. So whenever you are seeing other thoughts, whenever you are seeing other objects, we should, without any hesitation, embarrassment, we should say, I am still having Jiva Bhava. And what is the Mayaham? Tuimana Moriya, Toimun Mayaham, Toyave Arulin Arunachala. Those pure in mind and word, what do they search for? They search for only the inner presence of the true self. Let me also search and find that, O Arunachala, the Mayaham, the Aham iti sakshat Atma Rupena Bhati. That what happens is that when the upadhis are all dropped, the Videha Mukti, the Jivan Mukti is that even while alive, the Mukti is experienced. Videha Mukti is Upadhi Vilayam. How it is described in Sanskrit, Vilayam means dissolution. The Upadhis of the Stula Sharira, the Sukshma Sharira and Karana Sharira. The Sukshma Sharira and Karana Sharira already being dissolved into the self. When the Stula Sharira gets dissolved into the elements, then the jnani merges in the Brahman, like water in water, fire in fire, space in space. We can always recall the examples in Vedanta. If you keep a mud pot full of water inside a well, there still seems to be a separation between the water inside the pot, water in the well. Now when that pot breaks, what happens? The water inside and outside merge. Same is the case with, you keep a pot full of coal in fire inside a homakunda. The homakunda itself is burning, but that offering fire seems to be separate. But once that pot gets destroyed, then the offered fire merges with the existing homakunda fire. And of course, the space is the easiest to understand. When there is nothing added on there, just when the pot breaks, the space inside and the space outside, they merge. Like that, the Jiva, which is already detached from the identification and other attachments, now merges in the self, merges in the Brahman. And that is where we begin today's verses 54, 55, 56, where the jnani has crossed the individuality, burned all the Sanchita, Agami and Prarabdha karmas, and is now one with the Brahman. And what is the Lakshana is what we are going to see. Evvadavil piridedum adaidarkindro evvinbil evvinbinir piridinbindro evvarivu தன்னில் பிரிதறிவு தானின்றாமுவது தன்னை பிரமம் எனச்சார். எவ்வடைவில் பிரிதேதும் அடைதற்கின்றோ எவ்வின் பிரிதின்பின்றோ எவ்வறிவு தன்னில் பிரிதறிவு தானின்றாமுவது தன்னை பிரமமெனச்சார். The next 6 or 7 verses is going to end in Tanai Brahmamena Teli, Tanai Brahmamena Char, or what is the nature of the Brahman into which the individual has merged. Before going into these 3 verses, in the morning satsangs, we had an unexpected gift for discussing this week, where Bhagavan explains in a very simple way, if it can be told, that how the darshana of Brahman happens. Because that is darshana of God. Being Brahman is the real darshan of God. And that is why we go to temple, that is why we do parayana, that is why we do all the puja, dhyana, parayana, tapas is for the real darshan of God. And Bhagavan clarifies, and Sadhuvam Swamigal, he quotes that while explaining the verse number 8 of Ullagnar. That is, Eppeyarit Evuruviletinum or பேருருவில் அப்பொருளை காண்வழியது ஆயினும் அம்மை பொருளின் உண்மையில் தன் உண்மையினை ஓர்ந்து ஒடுங்கி ஒன்றுதலே உண்மையில் காணல். What Bhagavan explains in that verse, Sadhuvam Swamigal says, Bhagavan condenses into one sentence. He says, to see is to know is to become is to be. To be the Brahman is what we have in the indication in the verse also. What is it to be Brahman is what is we are going to see, that where the upadhis are all dissolved, there one is Brahman. There is not even the doubt that whether it is Jivan Mukti or Videha Mukti. There is only Brahman. There is no bondage, there is no liberation. What is the nature of the Brahman? Bhagavan says, to have darshan of the Brahman, initially we feel we can see God. Of course, we should have that indication, because otherwise the eyes are attracted by so many other things. Of course, we should have the puja room, we should have otherwise the eyes are roaming with multiple values in various sensory objects. But then Bhagavan says, to see is to know. That means, if I bring an Afghan person into my living room, seeing the photograph of Bhagavan, he might feel that it is one of our earlier tatas or Pollu Tata, the great grandfather or grandfather of these people in this family. His photo is kept, something like that he may feel. Because he does not have knowledge that Swarupa, that Rupa is actually beyond Pralaya. The Rupa which we are blessed enough to see is something which has crossed Pralaya and which is present in cyclical creation. It is going to appear again and again without fail. Whenever creation is there, Bhagavan's Rupa will be there. Now, he doesn't know that. Whereas a Bhakta will know it. Therefore, to see God, you should know that that is God that you are seeing. Therefore, knowledge, knowing, precedes, subsists, and transcends all sensory activity. So, through the senses, we are not going to perceive the Brahman. Drop all the senses, seeing, hearing, tasting, touching, smelling, all that is gone, jettisoned. We should, because it is dependent on knowing. Then comes the trick. Bhagavan says, to know you have to become. Where has Bhagavan taken? The Stula Sharira is gone. We are not going to use the Stula Sharira anymore. Isn't it? Because senses are gone, sensory world is gone. We are not going to perceive Brahman through these gross instruments. So, it is the Sukshma Sharira. The Sukshma Sharira being the mind. To know, in the mind only we have knowledge. We know this is Bhagavan's Rupam. This Namam, Namo Ramana, is beyond Pralaya. We have knowledge and we hold on to it. Now, if we have to go beyond Pralaya, but still maybe cyclically present in creation, then that Nama is definitely going to take us beyond. We have awareness and we hold it. We know that it is Ishvara Swarupa, Ishvara Rupa, and we hold it. So there is the I thought and there is the Ishvara thought. Now, what has happened to the individual? The individual is long gone. The Nandakumar who started the worship is long gone because all other individuals and Nandakumar have vanished in this I attending only to Ramana. Ramana is the knowledge and the I alone is there. So to know that Ramana is Ishvara, the I has to become that. Preceding knowledge is becoming, says Bhagavan. The mental stuff should become that which you know. How do people know all about the stars, all about black holes, which they have not seen? Inside black holes, nobody has seen. But in the mind, they are able to meditate on black hole. If it can have the gravity to pull light, if it can have gravity to pull all data, then what must be in the singularity? What must be inside the black hole? The scientist has that thought, black hole, and he has expanded it into explanation. I do not know much about it because I have not expanded that black hole thought. Bhagavan says, to know the details of black hole, to know the details of Pitraloka, to know the details of Devaloka, or to even know the details of sea, the details of the core of the earth, you, the I, should become that thought. So to know, you have to become, says. Now, so gently you understand, now we have come to the dream stage. In the dream, all the elements are you. So now, you have given a name. Because all the kopa, tapa, the objects, the people, the anger, the hatred, everything is you. And you have given one name to that stuff because it is all you. You are calling it Ramana. So Bhagavan is saying, you should become that to know about that. So don't even pursue what you have become. To become what is the earlier stage? You should be. You should be that consciousness which has divided itself into subject and object. We should recall here the exchange between Bhagavan and Seshadri Swamigal, where Bhagavan finally asks Seshadri Swamigal, is there a difference between the worshipper and the worship? Seshadri Swamigal says, of course there is no difference. But for me, Arunachala is still there. Arunachala is Muktidatha. But why Bhagavan has appeared? It is to spread Tanmayanishtai. It is to spread the Brahmajnana, the Bhuma Vidya, Bhuma Vidya Visharadaya Namaha. And that is the purpose where the consciousness is not divided as the seer and the seen, worshipper and the worship. You have to become the worshipped because before you know that is worship worthy, he says. So there, from becoming, you are being. The I only has become the other thought. So don't pursue it. When you see the divinity as a thought, you inquire for whom? For me. There you are in the self-attentive self. You are one with the Brahman, which is beyond Nama and Rupa. That is the background. That is, to see, you should know. To know, you should have become. To become, you should be. Being is becoming. Being is knowing. Being is seeing. Being is everything. That is where the Brahmajnani is there. Evvadaivil piridu edum adaidarku indro. What is this verse? Evvadaivil piridu edum adaidarku indro. What having attained, there remains nothing else to be attained. Even if you meditate on what is self-enquiry, suppose we get a thought to attain something, we get a thought, we should get independence, as Ganapati Muni had that thought that India should get independence. And he goes to Bhagavan and asks, Bhagavan, should I not spend some time and energy on this particular attainment that India, such an important thing, all the people of India seeking liberation, should I not spend? Bhagavan says, Ishvara is the best doer. So leave that to him at the appropriate time and appropriate moment, he will give that. But you go to the source of Ishvara himself. You go to the Atma, to the Brahman, from where the Ishvara himself arises. The first I arises, or the I arises. If you see the I as a singular plane, from that the first thought that arises, then alone the whole creation arises. Karuvam ahandai undayin anaitum unda. Ahandai indre, when that ahandai merges into the Brahman, indra anaitum, the seer seen is dissolved, vilaya is achieved. Ev adai will, what else is left to attain after being one with the Brahman? Ev inbil piridu inbu indro, the bliss or the blessedness that one experiences when one with the Brahman. What else can be there? Even in self-attention, there is no other. Even with effort, we obey Bhagavan, we understand He is the greatest dhani in all creation. And He has, out of all His large-heartedness, He has blessed us with Atma Vichara. When any thought comes, don't pursue it, hold the eye, your own existence. When you hold that, there is nothing else to seek after. Even in Abhyasa we understand this. There is no other blessedness, bliss, happiness to attain, to get in Bindro. Here, between this verse and the next verse, in Sanskrit, there is a difference. Jnanam is the word used in this verse, 54. Jnatva is used in 55. Bhagavan has clarified. Some of the even senior commentators have said both the verses indicate only the same arivu. But there is a subtle difference that in this verse, Yev arivil, you are that arivu itself. Yev arivil, piril arivu tanindramo. There is no other knowledge other than this knowledge. What is this knowledge? This knowledge is becoming and being. Because it is not a knowledge which is known. You should understand that you are the consciousness. You have become that thought, Pitruloka, before you expand. When they leave the body, they go into this. Devaloka. When they leave the body, they go into these areas. Satyaloka. When they leave this body, they go into that loka, where only Satyam or Brahman is the object of enquiry. So, these you can inquire only when you have become that Satya Loka or the other Loka about which you want to think about. So, becoming also dissolves Vilaya into being. Evvarivu Tannil, that knowledge. Apara is the word. There is nothing greater or nothing else as knowledge to attain. Where? From the being. Piridarivu Tanindramu Adutanne Brahmamena Sa. That is Brahman. It is called as Tatastha Lakshana. In the next 3 verses, the Vedanta uses Tataksha Lakshana, which means it is said that if we want to point out some similar houses are there in front of us, 7-8 houses, and you want to point out the house of Mr. X, and you see that on top of that house there is a bird. There is a crow sitting on top of the bird. The crow is going to fly away shortly. But then to your friend, you say, see, that house on which the crow is sitting, that is the house of Mr. X. We used to go to Tiruvannamalai through a circuitous route because the main route had become much damaged. The highway, Pondicherry highway, was full of potholes, and we used to drive through a roundabout scenic route. Now, in that route, we had to enter the Ramanashramam through a shortcut. That is, in that road, the Ramanashramam entrance, we need not come through the circle and come. We can go take a shortcut through Ramananagar and come into Ramanashram. There, we used to usually miss that. And therefore, we had a banner there for a few days, some political banner or something. We used to hold that banner where it is, that is the place where we have to turn left to Tamarai Nagar. That was called as Tamarai Nagar. And of course, in a few days, the banner was removed. But by then, we knew what is the place of turning. We had other indicators. On the right side, there was some school and some other proper indications were there, which were not like the banner, which could be moved. And each one of us, Dilipji or Venkateshji or I, whoever was driving, we would easily remember and cut into that. But the banner, we used to in fact joke, once a lady was standing there, so the next time while going, when we were about to enter that city or town, we just joked with each other that, see, the previous time, the lady was standing there, no, it happened to be a Mohammedan woman, so she was in burqa. The burqa lady was standing, no, that is the place where we have to turn for. Of course, that Tataksha Lakshana does not work because that is in the memory and that is no more there. Whereas right now, if a crow is sitting, why it is called Tatastha Lakshana? Because that itself is temporary, that itself is going to vanish, and you are using it to indicate something that is eternal. But then once you are merging with the eternal, then those things are no more required. Like that, everybody will piridedum adaidarkindro. What is the indication of Brahman? Now you don't have any need to attain something, to get a new thing, experience something and then feel better. What is a better way of explaining Vedanta? No. Being in the self is everything. Being in the Brahman is everything. Now, the happiness is what we all seek, but then coming into the absolute silence, there is no other happiness to be sought. That being the Brahman is the real knowledge, beyond the duality of knowledge and ignorance. All dualities arise holding on to one. The first I which rises, holding on to that only, the knowledge and ignorance duality arises. If you hold that I, then that I itself falls off into the Brahman. The duality and triads, they all fall away. The first ego which has arisen having fallen away, all dualities and triads fall away. That knowledge which is beyond knowledge and ignorance is the real knowledge which leaves no other knowledge to be sought. That is 54. 55, some say this is an improvement. Some say this is an indication for those who cannot talk about identification with Brahman. But it doesn't really matter. Because here we are going to look at Edu Kanar Kandar Kedu Edume Indro. Edu Kana, seeing which, Edu Kana, Kandar Edume Indro. There remains nothing else to be seen. Edu Anapin Janmamindro. Edu Anapin Janmamindro. Edu Arindapin Yatva. Edu Arindapin Pin Ariyataka Piridor Purulindro. Another Tan Brahmamana Brahma Mam. Edukana Kandar Kedume Indro. Edu Anapin Janmamindro. Edu Arindapin அறியத்தக்க பிரிதோர் பொருள் என்றோ அன்னதுதான் பிரம்மமாம். What is Brahman? Now, one of the commentators says, not only has he defined the Purnatva in the previous one, that Jnanam is Purna Jnanam, he is also saying nothing else outside it. That is how he has interpreted this as an improvement on the previous verse. Not only is the fullness Purnatva described in 54, in 55, Purnatva also means there is nothing outside to see, to become, or to know. There is nothing outside. Edu kaandapin, edu kaana, having seen which, kaanpadarku verindro. What is the seeing? The seeing is being. So we should say edu kaana, edu aanapin. What having realized the being of Brahman, there is nothing else to see. That becomes clear, isn't it? Edu aanapin janmam indro. Now, where is the Brahman? There, all Sanchita, all Agami, all Prarabdha have been dissolved. All individuality has also been dissolved. We don't think of even divine entities as individual anymore. In the Brahman, the cycle of Pralaya and Srishti and the entities crossing Pralaya and Srishti is crossed. There is this cyclical creation theory or experience, whatever way we may say, and strangely, there is a scientist, Penrose, who is coming around to that now. The new Webb telescope, which has been put, now it is showing that the Big Bang was never the beginning of the universe. Certain new things are being shown that we can see even beyond the beginning of the universe. What is that? What is that you are seeing, which is even before Big Bang, before 14 billion years, you can see. Now, that means there is cyclical creation, he says. That before the Big Bang, there must have been other Big Bangs. This is only one of the starting points. This is not the starting point of time and space. Is the finding slowly they are coming to. But that has been the experience of some of the Vedic researchers, Vedic rishis, who have posited the cyclical creation. And that is between creation and Pralaya. And there are certain entities like Brahma, Vishnu, Maheshwara, the Subramanya Swami, who are all beyond Pralaya. Somebody asks Bhagavan, is Vishnu beyond Pralaya? Bhagavan says, I am saying, doing Atmavachara, you can go beyond Pralaya. Why should Vishnu be subject to Pralaya? He says, whatever you want to make of it, you make of it. But then, the Brahma Swarupa is beyond the Srishti, Laya, and the entities beyond Srishti and Laya. That individuality is also crossed in this. Therefore, there is no Janmam. Having become the Brahman, there is no way one slips back into birth and death. The birth and death comes only when the Sukshma Sharira has not been dissolved, because the Karana Sharira has not been dissolved. There are still the Vasanas left. There are still the desires left unfulfilled. Therefore, one, after the dropping of the physical entity, which is the merger of the 5 Panchabhuta elements into the Panchabhuta, the mental stuff, because it is unresolved still, the Vilaya has not happened, the dissolution has not happened, it just has to go further in its journey, is what we call as Punarjanma or Marujanmam or the rebirth. That rebirth is not there for the one who has become, within inverted commas, because there is no becoming in Brahman. To become is to be. Is that what we saw? To see is to know is to become is to be. To become the Brahman, you have to be the Brahman. There is no becoming. All becomings are exited then only you be the Brahman. எது ஆன பின் ஜென்மம் என்றோ, there is no birth after this. எது அறிந்த பின் அறியத்தக்க பிரிதோர் பொருள் என்றோ. This is where the commentator, that is A. Parthsakti, feels this verse is an add-on to the previous verse which indicates Purnatva, because it says there is nothing beyond this Purnatva. Piridu Porul endro annadu thaan Brahmam. That is Brahmam is the Lakshana indicated. These are also Tatashta Lakshana because they are all using the Maya stuff. The pointers are all like the crow on that house, like the poster that we used to have in the Tamare Nagar turning. That is 55. 56 is the last of this Tatastha Lakshana verses. எது குறுக்கு மேல் கீழாம் எங்கும் நிறைவாகும். எது குறுக்கு மேல் கீழாம் எங்கும் நிறைவாகும். All directions are indicated. Like this, குறுக்கு, மேல் கீழ், and all around, எங்கும் நிறை வாகும். எது சச்சித்தின் இரண்டு அல்ல. What is Satchit Inbu? That is Satchitananda. In Sanskrit, the words used are what is Satchitananda? Non-dual, irandalla. Edu Anantam, which is eternal, Nityam, indicating the same, beyond the existence of time. The timeless is what is indicated as Nityam. Edu Nityam? ஒன்றாய் நிகழ்வதது ஆகும் அவ்வஸ்து பிரம்மம் மதி. In this verse, what is covered? All the directions you can see. See, because each of us may have one inclination. We may have inclination towards possessing, which is what is covered in the previous verse. We may be eager to say what happens in the security for our future. In old age, what are we going to do? How are we going to? So let us get some property, let us get some funds and put it here. I am not deriding any of that. I am only describing the process of how the past, present, future, the visualization happens, and we plan to get something to protect ourselves. எது அடைதற்கு பிரிது ஏதும் அடைதற்கின்றோ. That is how the 53rd verse starts. So those who are interested in being anxious about what I can get, they will be brought to turn inward towards the eye with that. But let's say somebody is interested in going here, there, flying and all that, traveling in the directions, in the various directions going, there such a one will be covered by this line which says எது குறுக்கு மேல் கீழாகும் எங்கும் நிறைவாகும். There is no place to which you need to run. You need to go to see the Brahman. எது குறுக்கு மேல் கீழாம் எங்கும் நிறைவாகும். எது சச்சித் இன்பு Satchitananda. The Satchitananda is, we have brought it to Sat itself is Chit. Sat itself is Ananda. Being the Sat, because there is no becoming. There is no becoming of Chitta. There is no becoming of Ananda. The being itself, Sat itself is Chit. Sattayagi Chit. Sattayagi Ananda. The Sat itself is Ananda. The being doesn't need even the Spurana. See, if we take the Spurana to be the ultimate, Bhagavan says that the self is beyond even the Spurana. Why does he say that? The Spurana is called Swagata Beda, is only shining, is radiating within itself. But as it is radiating within, the rays of that shines out and creates a sannidhi, and all karma, bhakti, yoga, all those activities are taking place that Sannidhi. The Swarupa itself, the Purana itself, is only self-attentive. It's like the Surya, which is having a nuclear reaction. The nuclear reaction is within the nucleus. But that results in a radiation in the Sannidhi of which is absolutely neutral to all the objects present in the radiation. The creation is taking place. The creation is happening absolutely without any bias. It is taking place because that Sannidhi is uniformly present. That's why Bhagavan says to the foreigner who comes, who says there are so many wrongdoings happening in the ashram, you are not correcting them. Bhagavan says, is the sun trying to find out who is doing what mistake in this world? It is merely shining, and in its radiance, in its presence, is not all work going on. Are not people learning how to do what they are doing, and are they also not pursuing self-enquiry? Similarly, you be the Atmaswarupa and shine, and let that radiance fall on everyone, is what Bhagavan says. And that is where Edu Kurukku Mel Keezham Engum Niraiva, like that radiance of that, it indicates inside and outside. Whereas Bhagavan says, hold that Swagata Beda of Aham and keep quiet. Don't ask anything of the Swagata Beda. Swagata Beda it is only having a movement within itself. Even that, if you hold, who is experiencing this Purana? If you just be that, then this Purana also quietens down. There is only the being. That is the silence of the Guru. The silence of the Guru, based on which the silence of the Sishyas are happening in Atma Vicharan, that where the Swagata Beda or Purana also is silent, that is the silence of the Guru. There, only the Brahman is there. Edu Kurukku Mel Keezham Engum Niraivahu. Edu Satchitinam. What is Satchitananda? Satchitananda is the self beyond even this Purana. We will see from 65, 66, 67 in those verses how self-knowledge itself is being the Brahman. We will see. But 54 to 64, we will be seeing about the Brahman itself. Irandalla, it is non-dual. Wherever you see Irandu, wherever you see the division in consciousness as worshipper and worshipped, as indicated by Bhagavan there, or seer and seen, knower and known, then immediately we should understand that we have not come to the non-dual experience. And we have to ask, for whom is this object seen? For me. Who am I? It is very easy to understand. The ray of attention, which was seeking multiple objects, is now taken back to its source, which is already present. It's not that you are creating the self-luminous self. The self-luminous self is already present as the Adhara. It is ever present there, and your real nature is really that only. Edu Anantam, that it is endless, Nityam. It is eternal, it is beyond time. Ondrai, Nigalvadhu. That is the singularity which is ever happening, which is shining as I. Ondrai, Nigalvadhu. Irandai, Ondrun, Ondral, Innondravad. It is not becoming, it is being. It is this Purana, which is Ondrai, Nigalvadhu. Yaduvam. Anda vastu, avvastu, Brahman, Madi. Understand that vastu is Brahman, which is beyond all directions, filling all directions, which is Satchitananda, which is non-dual, which is Anantam, endless, which is Nityam, which is beyond time. Ondrai Nigalvadhu, it is self-luminous. Ahum, avvastu Brahman. Once you are abiding in that, there is immediate understanding. There is nothing more to know. There is nothing more to attain. See how it validates the first teaching of Bhagavan to Amma. What does he say? Our prarabdha prakaram, adarkanavan, angangu irundu, ஆட்டுவிப்பன் என்றும் நடவாதது என் முயற்சிக்கினும் நடவாது. Even if you are caught up in the cycle of karma, you have not come yet to ஆத்மவிசாரம். என்றும் நடவாதது என் முயற்சிக்கினும் நடவாது, நடப்பது எந்தடை செய்யணும் இல்லாது. Because to that outermost jiva, from the innermost presence, this Ishvara is releasing the thought from beyond all entities, beyond all divine entities, beyond all powers. He is the other of all the Shaktis. It is said that the moon affects the brain. It affects the brain during full moon and new moon, uniformly to everybody, but to those who are tender and those who are in great difficulty to have the poise of the brain, the impact is clearly known. The difference is known. No, there are so many powers like that over the brain and mind, they say. But beyond all those powers, there is this Ishvara Shakti which is releasing that thought. Now, how can that Jiva there do anything that is not commanded by the Ishvara? Everything that it does, everything that happens must be the command of the Ishvara. From that we come to knowing. The knowing this Purana is knowing everything. Ishvara is omnipotent because without his releasing the thought from the innermost being, the person will not get any thought to act upon. So therefore all actions are only as designed by the innermost being. Knowing the innermost being is knowing everything. Tannai arindidil pin ennai uladariya. There is nothing else to know. Tana iruttale tannai aridalam. Tanirandratradal undi para. Tanmaya nishta idu undi para. What is it? To know the Atman, to be the Atman is what Bhagavan's teaching. And this flow of Atma Bodha is now finding its meeting point with Bhagavan's direct teachings. The end points of Atma Bodha we find continuously reiterated by Bhagavan right through his teachings, making it impossible for us to miss self-knowledge. His reiteration of the importance of turning inward, importance of holding the eye, makes it impossible for us to miss Atma Jnana, to miss Brahma Jnana. Therefore, with Bhagavan's grace, let us sit for Atmavicharam for the next few minutes till 8 o'clock, when we can listen to Revatima will set the time till 8 o'clock. Thank you. Namorum.
Namo Ramana, sir. Namo Ramana. Prostrations to Ramana, shining is the self in all beings. By the immense grace of the self manifest as Ramana, we are meditating on the verses of Anma bodham, which have been translated into Tamil by Bhagwan, Tamil. And we have been meditating on these verses from 53, 54, 56 today. And the first verse 53 talks about the dissolution of the identity, after which one within quotes becomes one with the Atma, like ether merging in ether, fire merging in fire, water merging in water. So this indicates to us that there was no difference. There is no difference. Even right now, there is no difference. There is, of course, in the example, a boundary, a very concrete boundary of a pot. But what is that boundary? If we look at in our own case, what is the boundary? The boundary is a body. So, the body is actually only a boundary. It's an illusory boundary. But what is that our true nature? Bhagavan says in Ashtakam, Adishaya Shakti. That's also it's a marvelous power. In the conclusion of today's talk, beautifully, Nandakumar ji took us to the Spurana. So that is what it is. That is what that Adishaya Shakti is. Even when the apparent boundary is there, even when the apparent movement is there, it is that Adishaya Shakti. Now Bhagavan very sweetly emphasizes the nature of this I thought as being the very self. He doesn't call it, the ego, which is a disturbance for us, which is taking us away. No, he says it is that Adishaya Shakti. So when we, through self-enquiry, question this I notion, it reveals itself as that Adishaya Shakti. And that too, when it dissolves, then it becomes like ether in ether, like fire in fire. Fire, something else cannot become fire. Something else cannot become water. If you add something else to water, it will be an impurity. If we put something else into the fire, it will remain afterwards as ashes. It will not become fire. But if we put fire into fire, it will remain as fire. Similarly, ether in ether. So, the removal of the boundary, what does it result in? It results in that awareness that there is no reality to that boundary. The boundary is only imaginary. So, the three verses, we had the description. In the first verse, we were told there is nothing else to attain apart from the self. Once one has attained the self, there is nothing further to attain. This is because we are constantly thinking of attaining something. We are always wanting to attain something, to reach somewhere, to have some goal. We want to attain a goal. That goal may be physical, it may be gross goal, like sometimes when we are hungry, we want food to eat, or it may be a subtle goal. But there's always a goal. We want to attain something. This never ceases. See, the other side of this is, having attained that, there is nothing further to attain. But until we attain that, there is always something or the other to attain. This search for attainment, this search for getting something will be never ending until we get back to the self. And it says there is no other bliss to be attained. What are we searching for through all our attainments, through all our achievements. For what purpose do we want to attain something? In order to get happiness. So once we have got this happiness, there is nothing further to get. But until that point, there is never a completion of our happiness. We can never be satisfied. We can never be really happy. The happiness which we experience is always temporary, it is always ending, and it is always seeking another happiness. We are always seeking another happiness. Happiness is never full. And it says there is no knowledge about this, because some of us may not be worried about any other possessions. Some of us may not be even worried about getting some kind of joy in this world. But all the joy is derived only from knowledge. I want to know. Somebody who wants to know, just wants to know. In that there is joy. And that is also an attainment. But it is about knowledge. So it is said that there is nothing further to know. So whether our life is about wanting to know something, whether our life is about wanting to enjoy something, whether our life is about wanting to attain something, it is impossible to reach our goal except by abiding in the self. Whereupon everything is attained, all bliss is attained, and all knowledge is attained. Having said this, then it is said there is nothing apart from it to be seen. This, I felt that sometimes there is a stage of sadhana where we say that we are only the sakshi. There is no, I don't even want to attain anything. I don't want to, I'm not even seeking happiness. I'm not even seeking knowledge. I am just remaining as a sakshi to everything that is happening in my life, to all my thoughts. I am just a witness. I am not seeking anything from my thoughts. I am not seeking to attain anything from my thoughts. I am not seeking any bliss. I am not holding on only to blissful thoughts. I am not doing any such things. And I do not want to particularly know this thought or that thought. I am just remaining a seer. But there is a seer who is seeing all this. So it is said that there is nothing apart from it to be seen. There cannot even be a seer. In fact, there can be no rise of thought at all. No jananam after that. So what is birth? Birth of thought is birth. What else is birth? When there is no birth of thought, there is no identification. When there is no identity with the body, where is the body? So, it is birth means birth of thought. In deep sleep, everything subsides, so it's equal to death. When we wake up, thoughts arise, so it's equal to birth. There is no janmam, there is no birth of thought also, and there is nothing to be known. There is nothing further to be known. That is what this second verse is talking about, meaning to say, not only there is no seeking of knowledge, because that is of the very nature of knowledge. The self itself is of the nature of knowledge. Chit it is. It is chit. Chit is pure knowledge. So there is nothing that needs to be known. See, in our sadhana, we may seek to attain. Then we may stop seeking to attain. We may just remain as a witness, as a sakshi. Then further we may want to say, even I don't even want to remain as a sakshi. Who is this I? I question. Who is the one? Who is the sakshi? When I question who is the one who is the sakshi, what am I trying to do? I am trying to seek knowledge of myself. Even that question, Bhagavan says, just like the stick stirring the funeral pyre, that question also will disappear. That will also disappear. So there's nothing further to be known, because the self is as it is. It is all pervading. He said, no, it is everywhere. So there is nothing apart from it, either to be attained or to be known, or to be seen, because it is all pervading. There can be nothing apart from it. It is of the nature of Satchidananda. So it is of the nature of bliss. So that's why the first verse said there is nothing apart from it to be attained. The third verse says because it is of the nature of bliss. It's full of bliss. So there is no other bliss to be attained. There is no knowledge about this, or there is no knowledge to be sought, because it is Chit. And because it is Sat, because it is existence, there is no ending, there is no rising, there is no Janmam. It is Satchidananda, and there is nothing at all apart from it. We must go to that point in the sadhana. That is what Nandakumar ji explained. There is nothing apart from it. Even the Spurana, the purest experience in which Satchidananda is also experienced, has to be crossed over to reach the point of non-dual experience. There should be nothing apart from it. So when we come to the Spurana, we come to that all-pervading nature, that Ishvara is there, Ishvaratva is there, he told us. And Nandakumar said, Ishvaratva is there in the Spurana. That means it is all-pervading, it is all powerful, everything. It is omnipotent, omnipresent, the Spurana. But it is also Satchidananda, but it has to go on to become non-dual. We cannot remain with that Spurana also. And that non-dual self, then what do we see? We see it is Anantam, Nityam, and it is just one. It is oneness. When we say non-dual, the same thing is expressed in the positive way. There is nothing apart from it. In that non-dual nature of the self, Bhagavan is expressed in the Ashtakam. He says, Indraham Puram Iru Vinai Iral Janmam. There also he says, Iral Janmam. Inbu Tunbu. So he says, no duality is there. Yendre Aham Achalama Natamidum Marunamalayam. So this is Achalama Natamidum, that is the Sat and the Chit. And Arunamalai, Arulodi Kadale, that Arul is the Ananda, that Satchit Ananda, Bhagavan describes over there as Achalama Nadamidum Arulodi Kadal. And he talks of that non-dual nature also in the verse in Ashtakam, and that is what Bhagavan is taking us to in these verses. He is revealing to us. And as Nandakumar ji often tells us, there is no halting in this path. Bhagavan will not allow us to stop at any point other than total dissolution in the self. Total abidance, steady abidance in the self. But all this gives us a clarity that if there is any seeking, if I want to seek something further, I am not abiding in the self. If I am seeking joy in anything, I am not abiding in the self. If I want some knowledge whatsoever, I am not abiding in the self. If I want to see anything, if I want any experience apart from the self, if I want to see, if I want to know, I am not abiding in the self. Only when all this ceases, that is self-abidance. And how will we know it is self-abidance? Because there will be no further seeking. There will be no further need to attain anything. There will be no further need to experience any bliss. There will be no further need to know anything at all. There will be nothing apart from the self. That is, Bhagavan says, one consciousness. It is all are one in one consciousness. The one consciousness alone is all enveloping. Even to say Each of these words, Nandakumarji pointed out to us, this is all that is the Lakshanam, in the sense that all these words are used because we cannot use words except from the perspective of duality. We cannot say something is nityam, something is permanent, unless we understand what is time. He told us very beautifully in the beginning, being, you have to know that when we speak about it, when we describe it, we already know it. Even the apparently unknown is known. This was given to us through a very sweet experience of Raghavendra, Dilip's brother-in-law, who had a dream. In that dream, he and Dilip were traveling somewhere. They go to a Swami, and that Swami is speaking in Sanskrit. And Raghavendra says, I don't know Sanskrit. And my brother-in-law Dilip, he knows Sanskrit. They converse. Now, on waking up, Raghavendra understood that he, in his dream, he alone was the Swamiji who was speaking in Sanskrit. He alone was Dilip who was conversing with him. And he alone was also the Raghavendra in the dream who said, I don't know. So the non-knowing and the knowing and everything was included. So the knowing, that's where Bhagavan says, even before you describe something, before you see something, you must know it, and you already become that. That's why you know it. And the being is where Bhagavan is taking us to, which is obviously all encompassing if we need to use words. But if by Bhagavan's grace, when the Anubhava is there, then there will be no need for words except for the joy of simply saying something. Very often Nandakumarji says, we have to say something, isn't it? It is joyous to talk about this. It will be like that. Om Namo Bhagavate Shri.
Namo Ramanacentre. That was wonderful.